in that place and among the general population and the public, that we seem now to finally be moving forward to have very focused conversation about the issues that are reflected in this population policy. And those issues all encompass those raised by the honourable members who spoke in this debate today. They include, importantly, the question of how are we going to sustain an increased population. But in that conversation, I want to remind us that, in fact, we are talking at least about having the population that we should have had at replacement rate. Sir, to support the intervention made by the honourable member for St. Peter, and based on a point also made in follow-up to that by the Honourable Prime Minister, the member for St. Michael North East, the actuarial report of 2005 that started to set the framework for what we can expect with respect to pensions and how we plan for being able to take care of our population. That report had certain projections for the intervening years. The report considered that the population in 2010 would be over 283,000, that the population in 2015 would be almost 290,000, and that by 2045, we would be over 300,000. So all back then, the preparations that were being made with respect to pensions could not even have contemplated the flight that we saw in that decade between beginning in 2007 and the decline on that basis, but also the natural decline or the decline more related to natural factors that we saw as a result of a declining birth rate relative to deaths. But I want to also, on the heels of that, even as others have pointed out, that the Population Commission did not give us a static number that we should target. And at Appendix 2 in the document, the policy says, while specifying the number of working age people needed in Barbados to ensure social and economic vibrancy could seem arbitrary, and especially when not done in the context of an industrial policy framework, which I will come to in a few seconds, it is possible to establish credible and justifiable targets for population growth based on the maintenance of the fertility replacement rate. So what is that saying? Simply that if we were replacing the population, just replacing, that in 2020, we would have been at over 360,000. And in 2025, we would be over 372,000. And by 2050, we would be at almost 400,000, 397,622. So already we can start to see, while they haven't prescribed a number, an ideal number for an ideal Barbados, already we can see that we are far, far below just what is required to be able to achieve the standard of living to which we are accustomed. And I caution us, and perhaps encourage us to then begin to draw a line with what some might be perceiving as a declining quality of life, with that declining population, because it takes a certain population base to hold up that quality of life. But I have to go on to emphasize some of the things that were raised by the Honourable Prime Minister, the member for St. Michael North East, which is to remind us that we are not having this conversation in a vacuum. And I'm very proud to be able to say to you, sir, and through you to the rest of the country, that the population policy is not an immigration policy. The population policy is a development policy. And it talks about how are we going to ensure adequate water and sanitation, adequate public health and safety, enfranchisement and opportunity for all, and all of the things that are going to address what people now frame as carrying capacity issues. When we populate Barbados really to the numbers that it should be today, do we have the wherewithal to sustain that population? We have the space for the housing that is required. The policy document makes that clear, that we have the space and we have the wherewithal to provide sufficient housing, to provide sufficient education, to guarantee a standard of public health and safety. We have the wherewithal. We have it within us at certain levels of population to be able to do that. But we can't be making this cake without the flour or without the eggs. We can't believe that we can make these things happen in a vacuum without the number of people and the composition of people who will be able to help us bring that about. Sir, I have to say a little bit about the role of industry and technology in providing opportunities for residents here today, and for those who are not yet residents, but whom we hope will soon be. Now, I've said in this honorable place before and in several other places that I consider that my role here and my contribution in leading the Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology is to be able to grow an economic sector out of this ministry. It is a sector in which we highlight and we emphasize the role of research and development, the role of data in allowing young people, allowing startups, allowing entrepreneurs to be able to develop products and services for sale to the country, to the region, and to the world. That framework, sir, will form the basis of a new industrial policy on which my ministry is working. And that industrial policy, sir, is not just a collection of things we would like to see. There's industry happening in Barbados today, but there's so much more that we can make happen if we signal to the world that Barbados is one of these places that research and development are encouraged and can thrive, that can create sandboxes to test new ideas and new technologies. Because we do have a small population where scalability is possible. And I'm not talking about things that risk our well-being or our safety or our health, but I'm talking about low-risk, high-value kinds of initiatives that we can test and that we can be able to say, we've rolled this thing out at national scale, and we believe in this, and we can create an industry out of this, and we can create opportunities for young people out of this. The only thing I will say right now as part of this discussion, because we will come to that discussion in coming weeks and months, is that while we talk about digital skills, I know that the Honourable Minister who leads in education sector and the Minister who supports her there are working very hard to build the foundation of understanding of more broad-based literacy and civic learning that have to underpin that. Sir, I will confess to you that I do not believe that we can sprinkle digital skills on top of something that stands to be otherwise transformed, that needs to be otherwise transformed, and think that that in itself is going to make the difference. We are not going to be able to create a technology sector from just lightly touching the population with this idea of digital skills, as if digital literacy can somehow replace literacy. It cannot. And so while we invest in that, that is only a part of the more broad-based education transformation in which this government is engaging. I heard someone say recently that education transformation cannot start and end at the 11+. Well, I have good news. It does not. It was never the intention to start and end at the 11+. It starts at, first of all, at empowering those who would be parents, even before they have a thought in their head or a twinkle in their eye about having children. It starts at empowering those who would be parents continuing to empower them while they are parents, but also in investing in early childhood education and throughout the spectrum to make sure that when we do start to introduce organically digital skills from as early as 1 year old, that we are really infusing that throughout a broad-based, holistic education system. Sir, as I close, I also want to address the question of what will our country look like? We travel all over the world, and we experience multicultural jurisdictions. It is, for me, perhaps one of the most edifying things that you could be a part of. And I will say this, I believe in multiculturalism and diversity. I believe that the reason that people love Barbados and love to make their homes and their lives here is because they also recognize something in our values that they want to be a part of. But that is not to say that there's not also space for their values and their positive values to also impact the way that we live. I think that we see the best examples of that, for example, in Ross University. When Ross students first started coming, I was a part of a activity over a weekend, where many of them showed up to volunteer. There's a young man in my constituency who I always encourage to stay active and to get out and do things, and I had a conversation with him once, and I said, what have you been up to? What have you been doing? And he said, well, I went on a bike ride with the students from Ross because, you know, they like to stay active and get out and see the country, and I saw parts of Barbados that I've never seen before. So I think that while we understand and appreciate that the desirable values that we want to retain will also be attractive to those who want to come, that we also have thrived on sharing those values overseas, but also welcoming those who have something to add to the quality of life that we have cultivated here. This population policy is the basis for us to intentionally determine the lives collectively that we want to live. I commend it to this honorable place. I once again thank the commissioners. I thank those who have spoken before, and sir, I'm obliged to you. Sir, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass.
The question is that this resolution do not pass. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed.
Mr. Speaker, order number 8. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to approve, in accordance with Section 5 of the Crown Lands Vesting and Disposal Act, Cap 225, the vesting in the National Housing Corporation of a parcel of land, the property of the state, situate at Pilgrim Place in the parish of Christchurch in this island, and more particularly described in the schedule for housing development.
Honorable Member St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to commend this resolution to the chamber. The proposal to vest some 2.01 acres of land at the site St. Bartholomew's Girls' School at Pilgrim Place in Christchurch. This site, Mr. Speaker and members of the chamber, this site came available when at the closure of the St. Bartholomew's Girls' School back in 1995, when the boys and the girls merged, became a co-ed school, and the site was handed over to the state by the Ministry of Education in 1996. The resolution before the chamber this evening is to vest the 2.01 acres of land from the state into the National Housing Corporation for Housing Development. And Mr. Speaker, this is consistent with what this government is doing to make lands available for housing. And this land, Mr. Speaker, should, once acted upon in terms of development of infrastructure and housing, should give us some 36 housing solutions. I'm not going to detain the House, but when we look at the dire situation in the country for housing, and I don't want to get into fires, I don't want to get into hurricanes, but let's exclude the recent fires we had, where which left at least 5 persons in Wellington Street homeless. Then we had Hurricane Elsa, where we had to rebuild some 1,400 houses. And we have at NHC some over 10,000 applicants for housing in this country. So the 36 housing solutions at St. Bartholomew is just a dent in the ocean, as we would say, with respect to what we need in terms of providing not only social housing, but low income, middle income, and affordable housing for the ordinary Barbadian. There are a number of sites that we have started to develop. Dodge North, what we call Concordia Gardens, where 154 housing solutions will emerge. Starting this year, we have started the infrastructure works there, and within another month or so, we should start some foundation work, where we'll see within the first phase some 94 housing solutions there. Ginger Works in the parish of St. Joseph, we have vested the lands at Ginger Works, Branchbury West into the National Housing Corporation, where some 89 solutions will go there as well. And at Searles in Christchurch, the state has in its possession some 18 acres of land, and that too will yield close to 200 housing solutions, just to name a few, in addition to what we're doing at Lancaster, 154 houses. Let me allow the chamber to know that some 25 households, as they have moved into the homes at Lancaster. We have finished some 85 houses, 100%. And we are working on homeowners accessing these mortgages in a shorter time frame. We recognize what our challenges were. We also have at Clifton in St. Philip North, that's in the Church Village area. We have 10 Jurvilla housing solutions that are completed, and 9 mortgages again have been completed thus far, and we expect persons to move into those 10 Jurvilla houses within the next week or 2. So, Mr. Speaker and members of the chamber, I just want to introduce this resolution to the chamber, the 2.01 acres to be vested in the national housing as part of our housing program. And as we would say, this is part of the administrative process and the legislative process to allow us to carry on the housing program. And with those words, Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution now pass.
Honourable member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to perhaps give my briefest address to this chamber. I had to get up to fully support this resolution for the obvious reason that it provides a much needed solution for my constituency, the constituency of Christchurch East. Sir, I do not know when last there was a dedicated, coordinated housing solution by any government in Christchurch East. I look around Barbados, sir, and I see other housing developments going up. And I wondered for a while what was the issue with Christchurch East. My good friend, the current Minister of Housing, we were tight, sir, when he had another portfolio. We seem to have drifted apart since he assumed this one because our phone calls have gone from being totally brotherly and loving to a little bit more acrimonious and tense because much has been promised and much is awaiting delivery. But to be fair to him, sir, he's had a lot on his plate, and the government has an ambitious target with respect to housing, and you have to start somewhere. What people don't realize is in any project, in any progression, in anything that's being done, someone will be first, someone will be last. But if there's a commitment to satisfy 10,000 housing solutions in Barbados, then obviously those who are at the end will be understandably frustrated. But the point is, if there's a commitment to get to you, then you sometimes have to hold to that commitment. I can say that I'm seeing some progress, sir, in the area of parish land where the government has identified certain lots for development in parish land. And some of the lots are in the final stages of being allocated. I also understand from my good friend, sir, the Honourable Member for St. George South, that they're looking at other housing solutions in and around Christchurch East. He has tasked me with trying to identify available land that the government can use for its housing development. Sir, we had this conversation, and the land at St. Bartholomew was pointed out maybe a year and a half ago. We went and we had a look at it, we inspected it. It is a perfect place, sir, to put down housing for persons in Christchurch East. It is close to the airport. It pretty much overlooks the airport. It is nestled in one of the last, I don't want to say one of the last wooded areas in the constituency, but there's a grove of mahogany trees there that one of the concerns from residents in the area was that they hoped that piece of land was not wiped off. The mahogany tree is not wiped from there because that is what gave it its character. The school, I don't know if people know where it is, but if you're driving along the old airport road, coming from the airport, going to Oistins, it's on the right. You see all the trees, and then somewhere in the background of the trees, you notice an old building. And that is where the school was, and that is the land that we're talking about. I am glad, sir, that the aim is to have as much as what, 37 you said? 36 housing solutions there because we need it. And one of the features, sir, that you realize when you ask people about housing, people don't want to move from where they are. So if 10 of us live in a house and we accept that somebody needs to get another house, or people are trying to find a house, they don't want to leave Christchurch East and go to St. Lucie or St. Peter or even West Central. They want to move within their own area of familiarity. I want my own place, but I don't want it too far. I want my neighbors to still be my neighbors. I want my community to still be my community. I want to go to the church I'm accustomed going to. I want my kids to go to school I went to. I want to be able to pop down and play football with people I've always played football with. So we have to understand that dynamic, that quite often the location of the housing solutions has as much to do with facilitating a growing community to still remain a community, as opposed to simply importing people in. I think that's a lot of people's fear, that when you do housing solutions, people can come in that you don't know. And people don't often expand the concept to understand that we are providing solutions to reduce the density in households within a certain community. So I also have the commitment from my friend, sir, that a number of those solutions will be allocated to persons in Christchurch East to keep the community intact. So I am hopeful. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful, sir, that we will emerge from this as close as we were before he assumed the portfolio. And I will not let that portfolio, sir, diminish in any way our friendship. Having said that, I I'm pleased that the government has taken this step. I understand the intentions to proceed with this development as quickly as possible. I'm here putting words on the table, sir, that were not necessarily said, but were communicated to me. So I'm making them a record of the House by saying them here. And as he has not risen to indicate that I'm in any way misleading the chamber, so we can take that as gospel. So I am glad, sir, that housing solutions are coming to Christchurch East. I'm excited to see what goes there because it is a very pleasant area and it is an ideal spot for people to, it's an ideal spot for a development and for persons to raise their family in somewhere that looks and feels nice and has a very good community spirit. So I wish to thank the Honourable Member for St. George South for plodding along. His is not an easy task. It's not easy. It is perhaps one of the most ambitious projects or statements of this government to provide the 10,000 housing solutions for Barbadians. And sir, I will do anything that I can to assist him in getting this off the ground because it serves my interests and it serves the interests of the people of Christchurch East. So I wish to thank him and entirely support this resolution. With those few words, sir, I thank you.
Honourable St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am smiling because my good friend from Christchurch East, you know, we are still close. And I want to thank the member for Christchurch West who saw it fit to commence the Atlantic Breeze project at Chancey Lane in Christchurch East to provide 267 middle-income houses. We have completed thus far 70 of those houses, and 27 houses are at varying stages of construction. And by the end of the financial year, you will have another 70 houses at Atlantic Breeze. But I will also add that at Corverley, we will start another project at Corverley to build yet another 36 affordable housing solutions. So the member for Christchurch East is well endowed with housing solutions for this year and into next year. So if you add the 267 that you will get and 72, if my math is correct, that's 339 housing solutions going to Christchurch East.
We'll be friends again.
We are friends. In addition to regularizing the tenantry at parish land. But having said that, that's, you know, we are doing this across the length and breadth of Barbados, from parish to parish. St. Lucie, we just finished 4 quads at Colleton. No, Coconut Hall. The duplexes, sorry, 20 solutions there. And we have another 17 foundations that will start next week. We will go to Allen View. We have a proposal for Allen View in St. Thomas that will start this year as well in another 2 months. So I can pick parish by parish. 40 acres, sorry, not Allen View, 40 acres in St. Thomas, as well as Vaucluse in St. Thomas, where we have a plan and approval to do some low-income housing as well. So we can go parish by parish, and I know every single member in this chamber. Ebenezer, we just acquired some land at Ebenezer that will be vested, and they mentioned Cyril. So the member for St. Philip West as well, she'll be happy, as well as the member for St. Peter and St. John. I think the majority of the housing solutions, most of them will go between St. John and St. Lucie, and some in St. George. That's where we have the abundance of land in those 3 parishes. So we are on our way to ensure that we achieve our target. It is a challenge, of course. We are trying to choose sites where we have infrastructure, services are present, and that will minimize the length of time we take to construct our houses, because the longest time frame when you look at the plan to construct a house, from planning straight through to building, you will see that the longest time span is the time span for infrastructure. And we are trying to mitigate that, putting in services and roads, and we're trying to mitigate that by utilizing sites that have services. So, Mr. Speaker, with those words, I beg that this resolution to vest 2.01 acres of land in the National Housing Corporation do now pass in this Lord Chamber. I thank you.
The question is that this resolution now pass. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed. Honorable Acting Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, now that the record is fully clarified by the honourable member, I think we've come to the end of the business for today, sir. And I beg to move that this House be adjourned until next Tuesday, sir, at 10 a.m. or 10 o'clock in the forenoon, as you like to say.
The question is that this honorable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 23rd day of July, 2024, at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 23rd day of July, 2024, at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.